We are extremely excited today to have Yoni Battat with us, and you will definitely understand why we're so excited as this discussion goes on and as we hear from him. I have been doing my research and can only tell you that even after we had a whole podcast with him earlier in the year, now I'm just more and more excited to hear more from him. So more, I guess that's a key word now. A little logistics. Everyone's cameras and microphones are off throughout. I will invite you to open your cameras after we talk a little bit. Please keep your microphones muted. It's just nice sometimes to get some give and take. If you have questions throughout, throw them into the chat, throw them into the Q&A. I will be monitoring to the best of my ability, and we'll be talking. So any other comments or questions? I was going to throw into the chat also. So those are the lyrics, so you can follow, right? I threw into the chat the lyrics of the songs, so you can follow along. I will throw it in again later. I just wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of them. And later on, I'll also put in the website, but you'll also get that in a follow-up. So other than that, did I miss anything?
I think you got it covered.
Okay, so now I'm going to give a little bit of background, but we really want to hear from you. So just to tell you who we're speaking with today, Yoni Battat is a multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, and composer specializing in contemporary and traditional Jewish music from Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Notice why we're saying unique. He maintains an active performance schedule across the country, playing violin, viola, and oud, in collaborative and interdisciplinary projects spanning a wide range of styles. Yoni has performed across the United States, Canada, Israel, Portugal, and Italy with a variety of artists and ensembles such as Earth, Wind and Fire, Yair Dalal, Shai Tzabari, Navati La, VSNY, and more. More recently, he's been touring nationally, and this really gets to me, as an actor and violinist with the Tony Award-winning musical, The Band's Visit. I loved that musical. So I just have to say, I was so excited when I saw that you had been part of it.
So sweet.
And in 2015, Yoni founded his own Yiddish jazz band called Two Shekel Swing, which has since released their debut album, Pocket Change, performed in Toronto's Jewish Music Week, and opened for Daniel Kahn and the Painted Bird, among other public appearances. Today, really, we're going to be focusing on his latest album, Fragments. So as much as everything else is very interesting, we're going to try and focus on that a little bit. But before that, we need to get to know the person behind it. So tell us a little bit about how you got into any music in general.
Sure. First of all, such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for setting this up and for inviting me. And I'm just so excited to be able to connect with people who have any sort of connection to Sephardi, Mizrahi Judaism around the world. So it's a big honor to be with you all. What can I tell you about myself? I started playing violin when I was 4 years old. My parents read that it was good for brain development of babies and little kids to start with. So they pushed me to do it right away, and then I just took to it. And since then, I've been doing so much so many different styles of music. I was trained classically as a violinist, but also started improvising from a very young age, and played a lot in synagogues on Friday nights. And that's when I was a kid, like 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. I formed my first klezmer band when I was 16. It was like an entrepreneurial endeavor to try and make some money playing basically the bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs are of our younger siblings' friends. We had like a little circuit and a package deal. We would come and do we'd come and do a cocktail hour and Torah set, and that was like our package deal. It was very cute. And then continued in college at Brandeis University studying classical viola. At that point, I had switched from violin to viola. At Brandeis, I was very into klezmer, so I studied a lot of Yiddish music and also Yiddish language. I took 3 years of Yiddish when I was at Brandeis. and also took a year of Arabic because I was feeling during this time, really starting when I was 16, but even more strongly when I was in college, that a lot of regret around the fact that I didn't grow up with so much access to the Iraqi culture of my ancestry. And the reason I was flourishing in the Ashkenazi music and Yiddish music, which I loved so much, was because there was a lot of opportunity to be able to find it. A lot of educational opportunities, I played in an amazing intergenerational pickup klezmer band from the time I was 12 until today. I still go back and play with them sometimes in New Haven, Connecticut. They're called the New Haven Capella. And I learned so much about being a musician and about Jewish music from that experience. And it was formative for me. But then in retrospect, I realized that was very limiting. It really held me back from being able to understand and fully sink into my full identity, experience, ancestry, whatever word you want to use for it. So during college, I had some amazing opportunities to study Arabic language, to play in an Arabic music ensemble for the first time in my life. I had received my first ode as a gift from my late grandfather Avraham when I was 16. He took me on a trip. Actually, that was my first exposure to Arab music. Was on a trip to Or Yehuda when I was 16 years old, and he took me to a music center, and I had a lesson with a Arabic music teacher, and I held an ode for the first time in my hands, and I learned about these scales and modes and musical complexities that only exist in Arab music. And it really lighted a fire in me. It really inspired me. It really got me excited about exploring this part of my ancestry. And so basically since I was 16, I'm 31 now. So the last, 15 years, I've been working hard to make up. It feels like making up for lost time. I started violin when I was 4, and those were very formative years when I was, learning to write and read at the same time as I was learning violin, and learning all this Western music and going to synagogue. I was bar mitzvah at a Chabad, so all of these Ashkenazi influences on my young adult life. I felt during my college years that I really had to make up for lost time and try and find some channel and some way of reconnecting with this other part of me that because the music was so beautiful, I felt really excited about it. So that I was excited anyways, but because I was really connected to the music, that's really what inspired me to go all in. And then it was a long journey from there too. In college, as I said, I played in a Middle Eastern music ensemble. We had teachers from all over the Middle East, Palestinian teachers, Lebanese teachers, Jordanian teachers, Turkish, Armenian, all came and worked with us and taught us. It was really, really amazing and formative experience for me. I sang in Arabic for the first time in that ensemble. It was really healing and really powerful to be able to say, oh, wow, actually this music is part of my own family story as well. Not just learning something about some other people's. It's actually mine. And yeah, since then I continued taking lessons with various teachers in Boston, where I was living, and also spent a year living in Jerusalem, studying at the Middle Eastern Music Center, and really immersing myself for a full year in just this stuff. I started performing with some of my teachers, and they've become good friends and big influences on me. And the journey continues. I'm in Jerusalem right now, studying. Basically, I'm studying with a man named Roni Ishran, who's a Paitan, Syrian Paitan, and he's been helping me to fill out all this repertoire that I wish I had from my childhood, and I'm learning it slowly and in a way that feels a little unnatural, because I don't just know it because I went to synagogue when I was little and I heard it a million times, and it's not just a part of me in that way. It feels like I'm actually learning it as an outsider. But that's what I've got to work with. So that's what I'm doing. And it's been a similar experience with language too, learning Arabic language. But overall, it's been a really healing and amazing journey for me, all leading up sort of to this album, Fragments.
So I want to take a step back because you threw a few things out there. You said oud, I said oud. I'm not sure everybody knows what an oud is.
Yeah, I'll show everyone the oud. Here's my oud. I have it ready because I'm going to play for you on the oud. I'll let you have a look at it. It's.
And And what distinguishes it
What distinguishes it?
as an instrument? Like what?
It's a predecessor to the guitar. It has this kind of bulbous shaped back. It often has like some beautiful inlay and stuff like that. It has this neck that kind of juts out at an angle at the top where the pegs are. The strings are doubled in courses, so each there's pairs of strings that get plucked together. They're tuned to the same note, and that's very similar to other instruments like a mandolin or a 12-string guitar. But oud is a very old, ancient instrument and sort of was a predecessor to those to things like the guitar. It looks most like a lute, if people know about like Baroque music and medieval music and know the lute. That's it's actually linguistically related. Oud and the direct object al-oud, lute, al-oud.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how the word lute came into existence from the Arabic.
Okay. New etymology for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of our audience members knew that either. If you knew that, please write it in because I would. So I wanted to ask you, to kind of give us a little feel of the difference between your klezmer music and the Middle Eastern music. Can you demonstrate it, describe it to us, show us the different sound?
Sure, yeah. To play klezmer on an oud is like, I don't know, I can't think of a good metaphor, but or I guess simile. What the oud allows, what'd you say?
Ahuva knew the lute.
Ahuva knew, nice, beautiful. What's amazing about the oud that really lends itself to Arab music is that it doesn't have any frets. The fingerboard is just one continuous plane. So if you think of a guitar would have these bars going up. And that means that you can only play notes that are one semitone apart. It's like a distance, like if you imagine a piano, the two closest keys next to each other, those are the distances you can play on the guitar and nothing else. And Arab music has a lot of other intervals and other really interesting details. It has notes that exist in between the notes of the piano, something that to our Western ears sounds out of tune. For people who really know what they're listening to, it sounds just out of tune. But it's not. It's really beautifully, purposefully played in a certain place, and having this fretless fingerboard is what enables us to play that. So I'll play you a little, trying to think what I can play to demonstrate. I'll play you a little improvisation that'll demonstrate one of the musical modes of Arab music called bayati. And this includes two notes in it that don't exist in Western music. And if you wanted to have a jam session with someone who was playing piano or guitar, you couldn't, because they can't even play these notes. They don't exist. They're in between. So here's a little taqsim, which is the word in Arabic for an improvisation in bayati. That's Makam Bayati, and I can show you the note for those who want to nerd out for a second about the this note and this note. both exist in Western music. Here's a note that doesn't.
Yeah.
That's kind of, which sounds kind of out of tune if you use like a kind of
Yeah.
Western lens. But the more you listen to this music and the more that I've been able to steep myself in it, the more I've really felt that those colorations and those specific intonations have added so much more possibility for expression that I've really enjoyed.
Thank you. And so first, there are a lot of Tariq was noticing the makam, and you said at the end that it was makam, so thank you. So I want to delve, now that we talked a little bit about your background and everything, we really wanted to focus on your new album. So it's really such a unique experience because it really does bring together your different backgrounds and the Jewish mosaic all together, with a Middle Eastern feel, and yet there's some Yiddish in it, and there's all types of languages in there. And you ask, how do you find beauty amongst the broken pieces? And in your notes, and you say the answer is imagine. So we talk a lot about imagination, how music can take us to different places, to transport us. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Transport us back to a time and a place. And so you talk about the first one there is Water and Air from Ansar Shaul, expressing his love for Iraq and its connection to the Arab culture. Can you tell us why you decided to open the album with that particular song?
Yeah, it's for exactly the reason you mentioned. When you think about imagination, there's a lot of people, maybe in this audience, who might connect with this, that it's hard to connect with memory that doesn't exist. There's memories that got passed on. There's memories that got sort of refabricated to try and grasp onto something. And sometimes there's just not much there to grab onto. And for me, for example, when I think about my ancestors and the place that they called home for thousands of years, Baghdad, literally thousands of years, the other places that my family's lived are just a blip in time. The place that they've really lived the most is Baghdad. And when I think about trying to connect to that place,
can you move in closer again to the microphone?
Sorry. When I think about trying to connect to that place, the only way I can do it is by imagining what it's like to, sorry, my microphone's falling. Imagining what it's like to feel the waters of the Tigris, or to run my hand through the Euphrates as it's flowing by. To imagine the smells and tastes of the market or the different areas of Jewish life in Baghdad, all I have is imagination. That's all I can do. And so I rely on the words of others and the imagery of others. And in this reality that I'm constructing in my head, in this imagined reality, my youth also drank of the Tigris. And my childhood also blossomed on the waters of the Euphrates. And the text goes on to that. Those are the first two lines of this text by Anwar Shaul. Thank you. Perfect. And it says, "My heart beats with the love of the Arabs. My mouth proudly speaks their language." And actually, there's a very interesting thing here in the Arabic. What it says, "Wafami bidadihim yushidu wa yantiqu." And dadihim is such a colorful way of saying their language, because dad is like a letter that only exists in Arabic. It's like a guttural D, da, dadihim. And I think that's such a beautiful way of, like, not only do I know these people and are these my people and this is my river and this is my homeland and the distant past drew us together and we share a common source and our fates are bound up together in a radiant homeland, but also, like, my mouth can't help but form this shape that is so natural to me of the Dod, of this like letter that only exists in one language, and it's Arabic. And so I was really struck by that as a really beautiful text. And it seemed like exactly the right way to start my album, because it's memory, but it's imagined memory. And also, if you listen to the album, you'll hear at the very beginning the sound of trickling water. And so the idea is to use sensory feelings like the sound of water, imagining being able to feel the water rushing against our fingertips, the smell of the earth on the side of the riverbanks, these kinds of sensory, that's what makes the imagination come alive. And that's what really makes memory, even if it's not, memory that's a real memory, it's what gives me the connection and rushing feeling of memory. Even if it's not 100% true memory, it's good enough for me.
Fragmented.
And if it's fragmented, of course, or if it's imagined, or if it's passed down and broken telephoned until it's unrecognizable, any of those things are still beautiful and legitimate. So maybe I'll sing a little bit of this for you all.
That would be wonderful. I'm going to keep up the words.
Go for it.
فعلى الفرات طفولتي قد أزهرت، وبدجلة ناهل الشباب الريقا، قلبي بحب باني العروبة يخفق، وفمي بضادهم يشيد وينطق. أولست منهم منبتا وأرومة، قد تمنا الماضي بعيد الأوثق، ربطت مصائرنا الحياة بموطن هو ماؤنا وهواؤنا والرونق.
Wow. Okay. I think everybody needs to take a breath. You definitely need to, but and yeah, the comments are just how beautiful it is, except that somebody just said the song reminds me of the sentiment expressed in Beyond the Rivers of Babylon, a book by Joseph Samuels. So
Beautiful.
Please do continue to throw things in, and thank you for that. And I want to so you talk to us before in our podcast, and you was talking about the idea of passing on the mosaic and diversity within the Jewish people and understanding the breadth and the depth of it. And you kind of do that together in one song, that you brought together a Sufi poet, a Yiddish poem, a biblical quote in the song Vapor. And can you tell us a bit about how that song evolved?
Sure. Well, I wanted my goal in this album was for each song to be another pathway to memory, imagination, senses, another pathway to access ancestry and to be able to feel that real connection through a different way, through a different avenue. So that first one was about imagining the trickling water and about the feeling of a certain letter on your tongue, and about the connection with the people, with Arab people, with Arabic language, with Arabic culture, with a homeland, with a connection to that place. This song was, I was interested in getting at the way language carries memory, carries ancestry, carries history. And I wanted to find some place to include and honor my Ashkenazi ancestry in this album, and also all the time and years that I've spent studying Yiddish as well. But I wanted to do so in a way that was within a context of Arabic music. So I had my friend and colleague Anthony Mordechai Tzvi Russell, who's a really phenomenal Yiddish opera singer. You should check out his work. He's amazing musician, and he also just really has an eye for bringing texts together and creating meaning. And so we created this big Google Doc that had all of these texts in Hebrew, Yiddish, and Arabic, and we took all of these fragmented sources and we brought it together in what we felt was like a cohesive story about how small we are in the face of time, and how we are working towards this feeling of connection. But ultimately, when it's all said and done, we are like what it says in Ecclesiastes, I can never say that word, vapor before you. We are like, we are nothingness. We just dissipate. And so it's like a way of holding the beauty of our ancestors and how important they are to us, and also how everything is ephemeral and everything is fleeting. And so this is that song, Vapor, which I can sing for you guys now also. Yeah, and I'll say the Arabic poem is by a Sufi poet who was a contemporary of Rumi. His name was Mansur al-Hallaj. So this is really old poetry. I think something like the 10th century, or 10th century, 9th, 10th century. And then the Yiddish is from the 1960s. Arn Zeitlin is the name of that poet. And then the Hebrew comes from Kohelet.
غبت وما غبت عن ضميري وصرت فرحتي وسروري والنفاصل الفاصل بافتراق فصار في غيبتي אנחנו איזן מרידיש כי רוב מעשינו טוב בימי חיינו הבל לפניך
I ended that a little differently than it does on the album, because on the album you'll hear if you listen to it is it all sort of melts away like vapor.
Uh, Sorry, somebody asked to send in the words. Yeah, I'm throwing it into the chat all the time, words for this. And I just think that this song so epitomizes you and what you're trying to do. And I don't think Yiddish has ever been sung quite like that. At least I've never heard Yiddish sung like that before.
I haven't either. It was an experiment, and it felt weird for a while as I was doing it. I was like, "This doesn't go. What's going on?" Like, and also there's a tradition in Arabic music to do all of these very ornamental singing. You'll take one syllable and you'll sing a lot of notes on it. Whatever. But it doesn't exist really in Yiddish music as much. Yiddish music more is one syllable per note. That's more the way traditional Yiddish music is sung. And so to take that, the Yiddish words and language and superimpose it on this tradition that extends one syllable for a long time was really interesting experiment. And ultimately it started to feel good to sing, but it took some time for it to settle in.
It is. I just think that's just such a unique sound. So I'm going to go now to two questions. Well, one is not really a question. Is all the music this beautiful was the question. I'm going to answer it. Yes. Listen to the
I think so, yeah. Listen to the album. And also the album includes an ensemble of a lot of different instruments. I play on the album oud, and I also play violin and viola and sing. And there's an amazing ensemble of a lot of other traditional Arab instruments. There's the qanun, which is a type of a harp that's played flat on your lap. There's ney, which is a reed flute. There is cello. There is what else is there? Oh, bass, percussion. It's a very rich and I think beautiful.
And the joza that I asked you about.
And the joza, sure, we can talk about the joza a little bit. The joza is an instrument that I only learned about recently. It's in the family of bowed string instruments, and is basically a very basic version of a violin. But it was made out of and it continues to be made out of a coconut shell. So the body of it is a coconut shell, and then there's a stick that comes up from the coconut shell, and the strings that come down from that. And this is an instrument that is native to Iraq, especially the one that's from a coconut shell and called the joza. There's a lot of other violins, and also that violin is played sort of, instead of up on your shoulder, it's played kind of straight up and down on your knee. And there's a lot of other bowed string instruments like that in all over the world, including very famously in a Persian instrument called the kamanche, which has become sort of the standard one that people know about, but I didn't know about the joza. And when I was thinking about connecting with ancestry, I wanted to connect not just with ancestry that, oh, thank you. Yeah, here's a beautiful picture of the joza, and it says kamanja, right? Because kamanja is the Arabic word for violin, and kamanche is the Persian. And you can see that like the little coconut shell in the neck, and it would be played like upright like this. Yeah, and it has fish skin stretched over the coconut shell to like resonate the strings on them. And when I was thinking about connecting with ancestry, I wanted to connect not just with ancestry of a few generations ago. I wanted to connect way back. You know, I wanted to go deep. I wanted to think about like the people who wrote the Psalms, for example. When they were thinking about praising God with a chinor, like a kino, what did they mean? They certainly didn't mean the violin that we're thinking of nowadays. And a lot of historians have different ideas of what that instrument might have looked like. And I don't really care. And I want to use my imagination to say that maybe this was the instrument. Maybe it was a joza. Maybe it was a coconut shell spike violin. Why not? And not only that, I want to use the sound of that instrument, talking about different sensory ways of connecting with memory, to kind of create this sensation of memory, to create this connection with our past. The sound of it is otherworldly, and I really recommend listening to the track. It's the song Zamru. I can't play it for you right now. I don't have a josa, but I hired an amazing Iraqi musician named Dinel Safar in the US to play on the album, and she recorded on that one song, Zamru Ladonai Bechino V'Kol Zimra. And so that's the text of the song, and yeah, she played so beautifully. And if you listen to the sound of that instrument, to me, it just, there's something that enters deep into the psyche, the Jewish experience of like praise and devotional music, and just the sound of it really, for me, connects me with times that even historians can't really figure out what they are. And for me, that doesn't matter, like specifically what they're saying, because it's the exercise of the imagining and the sensory that matters the most to me. I can't play that song for you, unfortunately. You have to go listen to it.
I can
play you some of the songs.
I put into the chat where to order the music.
Yeah,
as well.
beautiful.
And I'll continue.
There's a mistake in this Bandcamp link, but But you can get to it very easily from my website also. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, so I would recommend listening. I could play you some of the song, but I think what's really beautiful about it is the joza. So I
wanted to make sure that we at least understood the joza. I want to ask one more question before I turn to questions from the audience, because you ended with a song in English.
Yeah.
Right? Your last song is in English. What made you decide to?
Well, I want to honor that the experience that I'm talking about in this music, the experience of feeling like coming to your own culture as an outsider, the feeling of wishing you could connect better with your ancestry, but you don't actually have enough details to fill it in. The feeling that it really is hard to be doing all this effort. I feel like when I was putting together this album, it was really heavy for me. It's like, why do I have to work so hard to really understand this music, to learn it? It was really, I also felt like such an imposter syndrome. Who am I to represent this music to a broader community who has no idea what it is, as someone who's not an expert, and even myself came into it what felt like to me later in life. And the process of writing the album was very healing, because I realized that the fact that I am coming to it later in life, and this fragmentation that I'm feeling in my own family story, is a beautiful and human experience in itself that I think a lot of people can connect with. And in the last song on the album, I wanted to take this message and make it universal. And I wanted anyone who listens to it, whether they're Jewish or not, whether they're Mizrahi or not, to be able to say, oh, wow, this brokenness that I'm feeling inside me, this challenge that I'm feeling, and being able to access different parts of my family and different parts of my story, that's actually really beautiful. And it's part of the human experience, and like, I can embrace it. And it's what enabled me to actually release the music, because I felt unqualified to do so at the beginning. But eventually, I really felt like because of this healing message that I found in the music, and the way I felt that other people could resonate with it too, it's what enabled me to release it. So this song, Fragments, is in English, so that the audience that I'm speaking to, which is American Jews, American world music listeners, my community, so that they can actually relate to it in a more personal way. But also it does have a bit in the middle, which is in Arabic. And I took this bit from an Iraqi-Jewish novelist named Samir Naqash. And he wrote, وَنَحْنُ شَتَاتٌ يَتَجَذِبُهُ طَرَفَ الْفِصَامِ انتماء ولا انتماء, which means, and we are fragments being pulled by the two slides of the split, belonging and unbelonging. I thought this line really captured the experience of being pulled between wanting to belong where you are, but also wanting to belong in your past and in your history and in your ancestry. And it really feels like we are fragments being pulled apart. And contrasting that feeling of being pulled apart, I wanted to find the healing, joy, acceptance in that experience as well. So that's where this song Fragments come from. So maybe I'll sing like just a verse and chorus of this one, and then we'll open it up to questions.
From the fragments of forgetting, I may never find truth. From the fragments of translation, I may fumble for words. From the fragments of migration, I may never find home, may never find home. May I know my worth, may I find belonging.
Of the whole song. But you can listen to the rest of it on the album. And I also wanted to acknowledge that as part of my process for writing the album, this album was created in Boston with support from the Jewish Arts Collaborative and a new fellowship they called the Community Creative Fellowship. Also, CJP was a big part of that as well. And as part of that fellowship, I created some engagements with the community, some Zoom workshops where we worked together, and I shared some of my music and I invited people into my process. And what I did is I created a Mad Libs from this song, from the fragments of blank, I am blank, wow, or I blank. And I invited people from the community, whether or not they were Mizrahi, whether or not they maybe shared the same experience as me, to share what they're trying to get out of this fragmented experience. And sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's like from the fragments of forgetting I may never find truth. And sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's from the fragments of the stories I can hear what's unsaid. Sometimes it's from the fragments of the struggle I can know my own strength. And so it was really beautiful and healing to be in this space with people, creative, generative space, where people would be typing their ideas into the chat of the Zoom and I would sing them. And we were just creating this new song together. And a lot of their ideas really inspired me when I went to record the song. I hadn't decided yet which would be the final words that I decided to use in the recorded version. Wow. And only after several workshops with different participants did I say, wow, there's some beautiful ideas here. I brought some of my own ideas and I brought them together into the song. So this song in it carries also the voices of many people in the American community, Boston community, that really shaped the song.
So I'm going to invite people to open your cameras. Please keep your microphones off, but I will invite you to open your cameras so that we see who we're talking to. And in the meantime, I'm going to read off some of the questions that we've been getting. Amina asked a pointed question. First of all, bravo, wonderful music. And please, I want to ask you about the text of Al-Halaj. Why exactly this text did you put in dialogue with the Hebrew and Yiddish text? What spoke to you about that particular text?
Yeah, so first of all, I have to say, as someone, I'm sort of the expert right now, but I'm not great at Arabic, and that's part of the fragmentedness that I feel that I'm working to reckon with. I'm just working to, so I'm learning Arabic and I'm learning pronunciation. I can read and write, and I studied in college, and I'm learning Palestinian Arabic now, and I've learned some Iraqi-Jewish Arabic, and I've done a lot of work to try and understand those things. And when I was going to find this album, I certainly can't write my own lyrics in Arabic. I'm not good enough in the Arabic. And so I was turning to the world and saying, hey, what Arabic texts are there out there that I can use? Because the Arabic language is important to me, and the sound of it is very important to me, and I really wanted it represented on this album, but I couldn't make it up myself, that's for sure. So I went on a search looking for different texts, and that's where I found all these different places in books, in translation. And this happened to be one that was available online in translation. I actually found it first translated into English and then had to go on a big wild goose hunt. I don't know if that's a wild something like whatever that expression is, to try and find the original Arabic text, because all I had was the translation. But the poem really spoke to me. I'm not trying to make any sort of statement really by putting a Sufi poet in dialogue with these other things other than wild goose chase. Thank you. I wasn't trying to make much of a statement other than just to say they're thematically related to me, and also Hallaj was buried in Iraq, in what is modern day Iraq. I think he was born in modern day Iran, and was buried, died in Iraq. So I can imagine a past where he interacted with some of my ancestors. I don't know. But more importantly, it was the message and the sound of the language that I really wanted to capture in the song. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you. Again, I am promoting you to panelists, not so that you are to present, but just we'd love to see faces of people we're talking to. So we'd love if you accept. And then, have you experienced any anti-Semitism in your musical journey? And if so, how did you handle the anti-Semitism?
It's a good question. I think I've been lucky not to experience too much anti-Semitism, is the truth. I try and give people a chance to accept me. And I've found that when I'm honest with people and I engage with them in an honest way, that they do accept me for who I am. And I've been working with a ton of really interesting collaborators on this album, several, amazing collaborators who all accept me for who I am. They're not all Jewish, all the people on the album who recorded with me. But they can really get on board with this message also. And I think by being authentic and true to myself, and also making space for everyone in their own expression too. That's been really important to me as well. For example, the musicians on the album, we had conversations about their own experiences of fragmentation, and I think that's been powerful. So nothing's coming to me
Good.
about anti-Jewish or anti-Semitism. I've been very lucky to feel very embraced by the musical community that I've been presenting towards.
Thank you. We had a note from Penina Schramm. Oh, no, sorry, she had one before. The Ashkenazi traditional cantors, especially in the golden years of cantors, also used an improvisation of many notes on one syllable.
Yeah.
I forgot the term, but she's throwing that out there, I guess. Isn't it?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I'm aware of that improvisational style, but I'm not aware of music that's composed that way. So it's interesting to explore, I think. Thanks for bringing that up.
And then, am I correct in my impression that the Jews of Baghdad were amongst some of the more learned, experienced musicians admired for their knowledge and skills?
Yeah, so actually almost all professional musicians in Baghdad until the 1950s were Jewish. And when the Jews, most Jews left, hundreds of thousands of Jews left in 1951, 1952, including my family, they left a cultural desert of most of the musicians were Jewish. So now all of the orchestras didn't have any players anymore. It was very sad, and I think part of that was because the field of music was seen as a career that other people like Muslims and Christians were not so interested in, and this is true. This has been true historically of a lot of professions that Jews have gone into across the world, including in Europe, for sure. The musicians were respected and admired, and also collaborated with non-Jewish singers and performed across the Arab world. And there's even one composer on the album, Salah al-Kuwaiti, who was a Jewish composer in Baghdad, but whose music was known by Arabs across the Arab world, Jewish or not, and even some of his songs. His identity was erased from a lot of his songs. For example, there's the song Fogel Nachal, which is a very famous Arabic song. Fogel Nachal Fog Yabach Fog. And I know of many people who just thought that was like a traditional song. And really, it's actually attributed to a Jew. So Jews were an integral part of the musical scene, including the secular music scene in Baghdad, and were highly regarded. Yeah, and I wrote someone. Don't forget. I see someone wrote here. Don't forget the Piyut tradition, of course. That this was this Piyut tradition uses all of the same musical influences that I've been talking about this whole time. The makam, the instruments. Also, it's a sung tradition around the Shabbat table. And that's something that I've been steeping myself in also. And there's one piyut on the album, a very famous piyut that many of you might even know, called El Eliyahu, an Iraqi piyut. And I actually sing it on the album with my great uncle, who is my last living relative that was born in Baghdad. So you can hear his really distinct voice featured on that track.
And I want to make sure that we do end on time, but Leonie, your hand has been up for a while. I don't know, I can allow you to talk. I tried to, so if you want to either open your microphone or put your question into the Q&A or chat, play it. Well, you can definitely play that song also on the, you're being asked to play more songs, but
I can play a second or two, a quick bit of El Eliyahu. Says her great grandmother used to sing, and that's beautiful. And to me, the sound of my great uncle's voice is really what connects me with memory and history. It's just like a piercing sound. The timbre of it is really powerful, and so that's really why I wanted to include it on the album, to be able to invite the sound of his voice into this tapestry.
So I want to make sure we end on time, even though I think people would love to continue. I know I would love to continue, but I'm going to keep listening to the album. So I encourage everybody to continue to listen to the album and to continue to the comments. This will also be on Facebook if anybody missed it and you want to show it to them. So go into our Facebook and share, please. I just think there's so much there. So thank you.
Yeah, and you're welcome also to join my email list. If you go to my website, you can join my email list there. You can get updates about new music, live performances. I'm planning to perform in the US starting this summer already with some concert dates. So if you join my email list, follow me on social media. That's the best way to keep up with what I'm doing. And please support my work by purchasing an album. I actually have these things, physical albums with a CD inside. With one of these things you can show your what this does. You put it in a machine and it makes music. So you can even buy one of those through the website. Wow, and Ben Battat, my cousin. I'm assuming the one in Newton, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for being with us. Such a pleasure.
Thank you all, and make sure stay on for a minute, Yoni, just to read some of the comments because it's just really nice.
I will. Yeah, thank you.